Squirrels are known for saving, but with the help of AARP, they won't be the only ones. From planning to budgeting, AARP is here to help you stretch your dollar further. So take on today and every day with AARP. Learn how at takeontoday.aarp.
To be holding that trophy finally means a lot.
And the coach of the year is
Dwayne Casey.
A month and a half after being fired by the Raptors.
Oregon State pitcher Luke Heimlich was convicted of sexually molesting a 6-year-old female family member.
There has been some speculation that the Royals could be interested.
There's going to be protest. It's going to come with the territory.
It's just a blessing just to have the opportunity to be able to give the knowledge that I have with the game.
A former football player stuck in a Chinese prison.
2 years finna go past and I haven't been able to talk to him.
In the name of Wendell Brown, we are praying for him.
What you've seen may change your perception of any sporting event. Get this, shoot this.
Welcome to Outside the Lines. I'm Bob Lee. Summertime and the headlines are NBA from the Golden Trophies to the red carpet, even as that tick, tick, tick is the free agent deadline consuming everybody. It's a big story on this final Tuesday in June in Studio Z, the game that has come down to even own our summers. They rolled out the red carpet. They polished up the trophies in L.A. last night. And you know who among the on-court awards won Bupkis Nada Nothing?
There's a new dynasty in the NBA.
3 out of 4, back-to-back, your world champion, Golden State Warriors.
I told myself on the bus when I got out here, this is the third parade. I want to enjoy this as much as I did the first one and the second one, which is what I'm about to go do right now.
Yeah, those guys, the guys who won the biggest trophy 3 of the last 4 years. To the Golden State Warriors go the date with history. But on the night that the NBA recognized individuals, well, the spotlight fell elsewhere.
Being bumped by Johnson, and we get nothing, leaving Harden open for 3, and he hits it!
On the exact 9th anniversary of his being drafted by the Thunder, James Harden of the Rockets blew away LeBron James for the most valuable player trophy.
So from getting traded to having my own franchise, and then you got to figure out how to be a leader, as a whole. And then just these last 2 years is probably the most comfortable that I've been playing a game of basketball.
And certainly on the basis of the regular season, yup, that vote probably resonates correctly. And further prove how Mike D'Antoni's loafered foot on the offensive accelerator does that for careers. His offensive philosophy put Harden in position for that hardware last night, just as D'Antoni's system put Steve Nash in position for his 2 MVPs in Phoenix, one of which came in a vote over a second-place LeBron James. And that ivory-towered chin-stroking debate, who really is an NBA rookie? Well, that was answered when the Sixers' Ben Simmons decisively outpolled Utah's Donovan Mitchell, and whatever woofing had gone on back and forth between the two during the season was long gone when the two shared the moment following the announcement. And then the ultimate recognition that NBA success is an elusive alchemy of crunch time experience beyond raw numbers. Former Raptors and brand new head coach of the Pistons, Dwayne Casey, was named Coach of the Year this 6 weeks after being fired by Toronto after delivering a top Eastern seed finish before their meek playoff elimination in a second-round sweep.
You know, when you get fired, which I did recently, I don't know if you knew that or not, after winning Coach of the Year.
Yeah, besides the official hardware, it was a night to schmooze and gossip and dish. Commissioner Adam Silver, how about that Brian Colangelo burner account mess in Philadelphia? Well, as he said on the red carpet, I'm not touching that one. You want me to get between husband and wife? Would have been nice. Speaking of Philly and that ticking free agent clock, Joel Embiid was on the red carpet as his pre-draft quotes were taking flight yesterday. His LeBron lobbying in a USA Today interview in which he said, I think LeBron takes us to another level, which is important because at the end of the day, I want to be a champion. I want to do it myself. It cost Embiid nothing to say that, unless, of course, he is fined for tampering. But there's that Laker fan who has fired up his platinum card for more billboarding of SoCal. It's the same guy who put up 4 different LeBron-centric billboards 3 months ago. Now he has 40. That's 40 billboards for Paul George now around L.A. with 6 different designs, half of them featuring Paul George with LeBron and the hashtag PG2LA. The cost, well, You figure anywhere between $5,000 and $25,000 per billboard. This is a fan investment kissing seven figures, but Jacob and Rami can afford it. He's a personal injury attorney. Blind Optimism Award goes to the fan who posted at least 2 digital billboards for LeBron James in Sacramento. Hey, you got to believe. It asked for free agent Chris Paul and that supposed tension with the Rockets. Our colleague Rachel Nichols last night saw CP3 was the Rockets GM Daryl Morey and the CEO Tad Brown.
So these are the people you hate, right?
I can't stand them, man.
Right? You're fighting.
We beefing. I can't stand y'all. Get away from me, man. Get away from me.
Basically wagging their fingers at those who say there's a breach here. And speaking of fingers, Bill Russell stole the evening, a jocular bird aimed at Charles Barkley. Russ was unaware he was live in living color at the moment, but that man gets a lifetime pass anywhere. The menu last night was salad with avocados, grapefruit, and green goddess dressing. The entree, we have wild sea bass with rice and how would you like your steak prepared, and a delightful dessert, a cream puff cupcake and lemon curd, all of which my first guest gamely did not spill on his ever so stylish white dinner jacket as he accumulated selfies for the evening. And the man known on Twitter as Worldwide Wob, Rob Perez, joins me.
Thanks for having me, Bob. This jacket cost a lot of J.C. Penney's, so I had to take care of it, make sure it didn't get spilled on it.
Do not put it near an open flame. You look like you're ready to go wager on the back room at Rick's in Casablanca.
Yes.
All right, what was the buzz in the room primarily last night? You were taking the temperature, you were talking to folks, you were tweeting and taking those selfies, but was it the free agent clock? Was it the hardware being given out? What was the topic?
I know the NBA Awards was the actual event, but I mean, free agency is what's coming up. It's the big event. And between the players, the executives, the owners, I felt like I was in an episode of The Sopranos. There's so much pressure. You know, everyone's kind of looking at each other. Who's talking to who? We're taking notes on everything. That's the vibe I got. And free agency, 100%, is the talk of the town.
When you hear about a fan spending perhaps $1 million of his own money, and Lord knows, as a personal injury attorney, he decidedly can afford it to put up all those billboards in L.A. Billboards going up. I mean, that's the new growth industry, apparently, in 2018. Who would have put your money in billboards? And that level of interest around, does that seep to the front office level in any way, shape, or form?
I don't know if it seeps. I think this is just kind of grassroots marketing, to be honest with you, guerrilla type of marketing, too. You flatter. I mean, Paul George is from the area, and you put the billboards up, and the fans want him. I mean, if everyone else is doing it, you kind of just fall into line. I don't think it's so much a initiative of a front office as it is just, we really want you. And at some point, if you want to take someone on a date, you got to ask. And that's what we saw here.
One of the things last night, the attention given to Oscar Robertson, who has been a lone voice on some issues against the League 4 players, and his comments afterwards talking about where are the white players speaking up on social matters. What was the appreciation of the Big O in the room last night?
Charles Barkley said it best, that this man trailblazed everything for what we have, whether it was free agency or opportunity. There was just a mutual respect from every single person in the room. There was only a couple standing ovations. Oscar got one of them. And I don't think we would have the NBA business and product that we have today without Oscar Robertson. He was a great player, but what he did for the collective bargaining agreement, for the Players Association, he essentially started free agency. And last night, that really hit home.
And a little bit of a history lesson as far as Bill Russell. He can do whatever he wants, any place, any time, because they never lost a Game 7, ever.
I mean, I don't feel bad for Bill Russell, but he's seeing LeBron versus MJ debates for the past 6 months. Listen, I got 11 rings myself. I'm going to come in here and make sure y'all remember that. And if it requires me to tell everyone at the last NBA Awards that I'm going to kick your butt or I'm going to flip a finger, you know what? I'm Bill Russell, and I'm still the man around here.
Okay, you're welcome over. The Blue Parrot. Senor Brigatti says your credit line is good for Baccarat. Worldwide Wob, Rob Perez, NBA Twitter man. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Now,
thanks for having me, Bob.
On to the baseball. I hope you can drive a stick because we're putting in the clutch and talking about shifting.
Looking at a big-time shift out there.
They shift as much as ever.
That is an exaggerated shift.
This is ridiculous. Come on.
The guy who has the ball on the rubber is the one that determines how effective your shift can be.
Have you allowed more hits because of the shift, or have you prevented more hits?
You shouldn't have a second baseman diving for your ball by the warning track.
Well, this is now how it is.
I hate it. I really do.
Baseball fans everywhere looking how to drive a shift, and what it's brought on is a war on left-handed hitters led by the world champion Astros, and at the same time a total statistical downturn in baseball's offense. Home runs are down nearly 10%, all of which Buster only can recite in his sleep. But he's bright-eyed, and he's not wearing a white dinner jacket. My gosh. But you're making your own fashion. We talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the numbers continue to accumulate. Is it the shift that's driving down the offensive numbers? I know we got power pitching like we've never seen, teams with 12 and 13 pitchers. Analyze, please.
Yeah, all of the above. Look, there are a lot of factors going into it, but when the competition committee had a conference call recently, a lot of the time was spent talking about shifts and if there can be some regulations. And I do think that eventually there are going to be at least some limits on defensive shifts. Some of the ideas keep the left side of the infielders on that side, the shortstop and third baseman on the left side of second base, keep the second baseman, first baseman on the right side. One suggestion was keep spikes in the dirt if you're an infielder. In other words, none of those outfielders setting up in the outfield one way or the other because they are trying to goose the offense, Bob. I think there are going to be some rules regarding shifts.
Astros shift 61% of the time against left-handed hitters. Does that cause an effect while they each have a ring?
That's certainly a big part of it. Look, the Tampa Bay Rays were one of the first teams to do this, and guess what? They had success, and so the rest of the industry has followed them. None of this would be happening in baseball in 2018 if the numbers didn't indicate that it makes sense. Every team now just about is chasing the numbers.
Now, baseball has adopted to trends. They lowered the mound beginning in 69 after that great pitching season of 68. We have the lowest batting average this year in the majors since 72, which was the last season before the, well, some believe it's a communist conspiracy, other things it's enlightened philosophy. The DH came in one league. Are we headed for universality here?
I believe so, for the exact same reason that they had an adjustment on home plate collision rules. Because at that time, if you remember, the talk among baseball executives was we need to protect our assets like Buster Posey, and why put them at risk for an outlier type play like blocking home plate? The same conversations going on among executives now about having pitchers bat. You saw Dellin Betances of the Yankees last night take some wild swings, and Aaron Boone acknowledged afterward he was kind of cringing as he watched that because, of course, they're all afraid of injuries, and a lot of people around baseball think that you are not going to be paying pitchers to hit. We'll see if it takes 3 years, 5 years. I do think eventually the National League will have the DH.
I want to move on to a thorny, a troubling topic. Oregon State pitcher Luke Heimlich, a talented left-handed pitcher. 6 years ago, he pleaded guilty to sexually molesting his 6-year-old niece. He is at the time he was 15. He admitted to the offense, saying he did so to not risk a guilty verdict at trial. He was undrafted last year, undrafted this year, scheduled to start tonight for Oregon State in the first game of the College World Series Finals. Ned Yo, skipper of the Royals, saying that his boss, the GM Dayton Moore, is investigating whether to sign Heimlich. Let's listen.
Truly believe in second chances, but I think it's important that you go through the process, like Dayton's going through the process, where you get all your facts straight on exactly what's going on, exactly what happened, and before you get all your facts straight, it's hard to make a judgment, or it's hard to make a decision or give a educated opinion on anything without doing it.
So they're gathering facts, but are the Royals, even to that extent, alone out there on the wire among all the teams?
For the most part, Bob, I think they are. But in talking with executives with other teams, they think the Royals are uniquely positioned to sign Heimlich, and that's the expectation around the game. Number one, their general manager, Dayton Moore, is a figure with tremendous credibility, tremendous sincerity. Number two, this is a general manager who just won a championship a few years ago. It's not a first or second year general manager. And number three, and GM's pointed this out, it's not a big market. It's a small market. It couldn't work perhaps in a New York or a Boston, maybe in Kansas City.
Yeah, the media circus, if there is that, is much, much smaller. And he's a left-handed pitcher. You can put a price on it. It's usually pretty high. Buster, appreciate that. Let's now continue the discussion with USA Today columnist Nancy Armour, who on the topic of Luke Heimlich has written, quote, "There can be no redemption without contrition, no rehabilitation without an acknowledgement of wrongdoing." That was your column last month. This is a man who, nonetheless, Nancy, was commended by his judge when he completed his sentence. So what are you saying? What do you need to see here?
I think to me what is troubling, or at least needs to really be looked into, is we have basically two different stories. You have the one that Luke Heimlich told when he pleaded guilty, when he wrote a letter of apology to his niece, his victim. And even last year, when this became public knowledge that he had a conviction for molesting his niece, he talked about the mistakes that he had made, his wrong behavior when he was a teenager. And now he says, no, I never did anything wrong. I only pleaded guilty to spare my family. So it's really tough to know what is the truth here. And, that's kind of the problem, is that this is not a redemption tour, because he's not asking for redemption. He's saying he did nothing wrong.
What would you say to the front office of the Royals right now, who are, again, they haven't signed him, and if you heard Buster, they're moving in that direction, they're gathering facts. Right. What would you say to them?
Luke Heimlich is very much entitled to go on with his life and to be a productive citizen. He has served his probation. He has not done anything illegal during that time. But, this goes to the whole question of, does that privilege include playing sports? Should he have been playing at Oregon State? Is he deserving of a major league contract with this on his record? And, one of the things that pretty much I think everybody can agree goes beyond the pale is sexual abuse of a child. And that's what we're talking about here. It's not just a conviction on his record. It's a conviction for one of the most heinous things that a person can do.
And yet, I will tell you, I'm going to promote this game later in the show. I'm going to mention his name. There is an attraction to seeing him pitch because of this. Absolutely.
It's the kind of everybody wants to see, we rubberneck at car wrecks and train wrecks and things like that. And this is kind of goes along with that. There are people who are going to hate watch him, hoping that he fails. There are people who are going to see him as wronged, and so they want him to do well. And then there are people who are just going to be curious. So yes, he will drive the conversation, and he will drive people watching it. Is that right or not? That's a decision that I think we all have to make.
It just is. And Nancy Armour looking for a change of tone and an explanation from Heimlich. Nancy, always a pleasure from USA Today. Thank you for joining us. And next, the American football player languishing in a Chinese prison who's about to learn if he's going to spend the next decade there. That's next.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Outside the Lines is brought to you by Sicario. Day of the Soldado. Only on the big screen, June 29th. Rated R.
Today in the B Block, American athletes and Chinese justice. It was nearly 8 months ago that 3 UCLA freshman basketball players, including LiAngelo Ball, were detained for 6 days in China after being apprehended shoplifting from several high-end stores in the city of Hangzhou. The players' case attracted international headlines, the attention of the U.S. government, including that of President Trump. Now, by contrast, the case of Wendell Brown is very different. Virtually no one knows of this former Ball State and CFL football player. He was arrested in a bar fight in Chongqing 20 months ago. Brown has been in jail ever since, still awaiting a verdict from his trial, which was last year. Filmmaker and documentarian Matt Liston has taken up the cause and the case of his fellow Ball State alum. Matt, it's good to have you here.
Hi, thanks, Bob.
Wendell, what was he doing? Why was he living in China?
Well, Wendell was in China teaching American football. He was coaching older players how to play the game, as well as volunteering to teach children how to play American football.
So over there doing that. He's been, as we said, since the summer of 2016. He had his trial last year. You have been corresponding with him as these cases, some would say languished, or others would say progressed through the Chinese system. What does he reveal to you about his character and his attitude about this?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're allowed to exchange letters with him through the U.S. consulate once a month. And one thing that is very clear is his spiritual strength through this. He misses his family. He loves his family and friends. And he wants to be home. But at the same time, he has such great spiritual strength through this. And I want to add that he also has a sense of humor. And it comes through, despite what he's going through right now, he likes to make some jokes here or there in the letters. And I think that's great during a time like this because I think it boosts the morale of his family and friends who are anxiously awaiting his return.
Yeah, we have some of the pictures up that show him working with some of the Chinese youth. I know in an interview he was asked, what's the best thing about China? He said the people. So he was working hand to hand with the young folks and coaching football. He and his family, or his family and friends here in the States, though, have taken up his case. They went to Washington. What happened?
Well, yes, they went to Washington back in March. Wendell's family actually rented a couple of vans, loaded themselves in these vans, and drove through the night from Detroit to Washington, D.C. for meetings that were to take place the very next morning. Well, they arrived at 9 a.m. for their 9:30 meetings, and they never happened. Unfortunately, they were all canceled, all three of them. And despite it being a heartbreaking moment, it speaks to the strength of Wendell's family because they persevered, they moved on, and now they've gotten enough attention on this cause and this case to make it a little bit more high profile. And to be honest with you, we are thrilled to announce that the government, both the Chinese government and the United States government, have been working together on this case. Both the White House and the State Department have stepped up, and they're working tirelessly to bring Wendell Brown home.
Because at this point, according to the strict reading of the law, he faces possibly 3 to 10 years, does he not?
That's correct. That's correct. Now, we will learn his verdict on Wednesday, late Wednesday night. I'll be with Wendell's family in Detroit. We'll be praying together. And what we're looking for is, while they have a 99% conviction rate in the Chinese courts, what we're hoping to hear is the news. There are many scenarios that can play out that allow for an immediate release, where Wendell can come home to his family. And that's what we'll be waiting for and praying for that phone call.
And I know you've got a website, bringhomewb.com, in which a lot of these facts are out there. 20 months. And as far as his family said, there's never been a moment when he's doubted that something good will happen at the end here.
That's right. By the way, 20 months and not convicted of any crime. It's unbelievable. And yet he stays spiritually strong. And I think a lot of that comes from his mother, who is the heart and soul of this campaign, and she's his eyes and ears. And we believe Wendell Brown will return home.
About 30 hours from now, we'll learn the judgment from the court. He's already had his trial, and the judge will have the ruling. Matt Liston, good to have you back with us talking about something I know very close to your heart. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We've got a final word next on OTL. Come on back.
AARP can help you become your healthiest self. It's why we offer health tips for your body and your brain. So take on today and every day with AARP. Learn how at takeontoday.aarp.
Sports Center 6 Eastern with Jay and Michael. All access with Paul George, Dave McMenamin on the clues from LeBron and highlights of Messi and Argentina in their must-win. It's also on the app. And tonight, College World Series baseball doubleheader. Game 1 of the finals, Arkansas and Oregon State. Luke Heimlich, the probable starter for the Beavers, and Cubs and Dodgers on the back end. That's on the ESPN app as well. Knicks is next. Yes, she is. NFL Live. Wendy is by. Livian Bell closing on a new contract. Odell Beckham, the same, maybe.
Next. You're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. Whee! You melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.